Um, as far as I can see right now, there is this large harness connector that gets connected to this metal bracket. There are 1, 2, 3 holes here in the airbox, which correspond to this Christmas tree clip and these two ignition coil connectors which clip in here, and then there are these two screws, 1 and 2, which are for these manifold air pressure sensors, 1 and 2, which should all connect up. And then this guy I think hooks in right here. So let's get all that placed. Trying to connect this PCV hose to the outlet here. I know there's another one on the other side, but let's get this guy in first through all this. Oof. Yes. Is crowded. Perfect. Ever since I bought these hose pliers, I found them incredibly useful. So it looks like these cutouts kind of fit together in a way that brings all these together, and the airbox itself is held down to the throttle bodies via these hex head screws that hold the velocity stacks down. So the velocity stack sandwiches the bottom of the airbox against the throttle body. I guess there's no torque spec for these bolts, so I'm just gonna give them a good snug. They're pretty tiny screws going into aluminum, so I'm not gonna tighten them a lot. I'm just gonna use a tiny wrench and give them a twist. Now let's see about this air filter. It's like we have 3 captive screws in here. That feels plenty tight. Grabbing a fresh and clean blue towel, clean off this mating surface one more time. So give everything in here good wipe and take off any dust that I might have collected while it was sitting open. One last blast with brake clean. Make sure this mating surface is entirely free of oil. I'm going to put a tiny amount of RTV both here and here, where the upper and lower cases are meeting. Gasket from AF1. I'm gonna leave it for 15 minutes for the RTV to set up. In the meantime, we can connect this hose, put a new hose clamp on it, and then connect these 2 hoses to the evap canister. Off camera, I did go back and route it correctly under the wiring harness and through this retainer here. the long bolt goes on top. That's all set. This guy is all set. I just need to torque these bolts down. Yeah, that should be good. The manual mentions that you need to tighten to torque, unscrew, and retighten to torque. And then I went and read the procedure. Tighten the 5 screws and 3 special screws. Tighten screws working in stages and diagonally. So by 3 special screws, they're talking about the PCV. Since we didn't take that off, we don't need to mess with it. We need to work diagonally and tighten these. And I think they want us to tighten torque and then unscrew and tighten again, because once it seats, it will relieve some pressure from the remaining screws. So essentially go over it twice, and it's 12 Newton meters, so 8 pound-feet, which is 96 inch-pounds. So let's go 50 inch-pounds first. Okay, now up to 96. Generator side should be all set now. What I do want to do one last time is spin the engine over and spin the engine over by hand and feel that everything is smooth. Other than compression, I don't feel anything binding, anything like that. But now repeat the same thing I did on that side over here. So just grab a fresh blue towel and wipe everything down. Try to get any dust or grit or anything like that that might have settled here out. New gasket for the clutch cover side. In this case, I'm choosing not to put any RTV where the case is joined, because when I took it off, there wasn't any. And off camera, I cleaned up this mating surface really well with some brake clean and stuff. So there are two dowel pins, one up here and one down here, and I'm just seating the gasket on the dowel pins so it stays where it needs to go. I also pulled the starter gear, so this guy, I pulled this guy out of this cover, which it was seated here, and stuck it on here and made sure it's engaged with both the starter on this end as well as the main crankshaft gear on this end. I also turned this rack, the clutch rack, to face backwards, and I added this zip tie here to hold the clutch lever arm out at an angle like this. So once I put this in, the shaft of the rack has to go in here and engage with this gear. So when I put it in, you want this arm to be facing either towards the bike or at an angle this way, so that you can engage it with the cable as well as have the spring preload present in the arm when everything is engaged. I tried it once and I got it to engage in there. Let's see how it goes. After several more rounds of messing around, taking the cover off, putting it back on, trying to get this lever into the correct position, I finally have it set up so that I'm happy with the way it is. So I have a little bit of adjustment left here, and I have plenty of adjustment left on this end. You can see it's just coming out right at the end there. And what seemed to work for me was having this lever arm just past this cover here, so it is angled like essentially like this, and there was no preload on this spring at that point. So I had about here is where it like wants to rest, and then I moved it about 15 degrees out from there. So once you engage the teeth on the inside and you push the cover on, the lever will close up or it will move in this direction. So you want to try to compensate for that, and the setting I found that worked best for me was when I had this threaded in, this cable should be able to just reach the lever arm and hook in from the side. and then the preload is just about right. So I have about that much free play. So let me demonstrate from up above. So about that much free play on the clutch, and that's about all I want to have. So that gives me a couple of millimeters, a few millimeters of free play before the clutch starts to engage. So this way I know the clutch is fully disengaged here, and then then I can engage the clutch, and I have good lever feel and lever travel. When I start the bike, I'm going to check and see if the clutch is fully engaging and disengaging, and then I have some ability to adjust both here and down below. This is a bit of a pain, but hopefully with what I found, it should help you out as you're doing. The other thing to also remember is after you do everything, you engage this and you start to tighten the bolts down. That gives you a little more free play in this. So you want, when you put it on, like right at the beginning, you want to have little less free play than you would actually want. So give yourself plenty of adjustment both here and in the lever, and don't be at the end of either of these adjustments when you have the cover on, would be my recommendation. I also put this guy back on, the little dipstick, and I put this in. I'm just about to, I have all these bolts just touched down, and I'm going to do the torque sequence at 50 inch-pounds and 97 inch-pounds, same as the other side cover. So one round with 50 inch-pounds going diagonally from inside to outside, and then second round with 100 inch-pounds, and then I'll do a third round with 100 inch-pounds as well, just to make sure everything is snug, especially with stuff like this, which is compressing a gasket. I like to do one extra pass, because once the gasket snugs, it tends to relieve bolts in other points other than what you tightened up last. So I like to do at least 2 rounds. Anyway, let's get on with it. Torque spec on this cover is 177 inch-pounds. Next, I'm going to put this ECU back on. Now I realize it was probably a waste of time taking this ECU off, and there was really no need to do that. I could have just left it on the top of the airbox cover, which I will plan on doing next time. Okay, I went back and looked at my video, and I can't believe I didn't notice this, but these two coil connectors, they have these tracks that mount on this, and that's where these guys are supposed to go. I totally forgot about that. There's also one here that mounts this coil connector, but I'm not sure I can get that wire far enough out to connect this correctly, but it's not the hugest deal. I just like to have the wiring exactly how it was from the factory, but this is close enough, I think. Let's connect it there. This guy. This guy. All right, I need to put the zip ties in. Hang on. Recheck the video, and looks like both these guys, this guy is fine, he comes from under wiring harness, but this guy definitely comes from under the wiring harness here, so I'm gonna have to reroute this a little bit. That's it's much better now. Better clearance, everything lines up. Bloody blue. Anyway, let's get the main fuel line connected. Take off this cap I put on here. Minor fuel spillage. Clean all that off. Make sure this thing clicks. I'm not going to connect these connectors yet. I can connect this guy. I think this is the IMU, but this is the main fuel tank harness connector, and I'm not going to connect this right now because I want to crank the engine without any fuel and just get oil circulating and the oil pressure to build up a little bit before we actually attempt to start it. I mean, obviously after we fill oil and all that good stuff. Okay, let me get the rest of these hoses connected. This tank can be a pain in the butt to get seated, but I don't think we have to worry about that too much right this second. I'm gonna clean up all this and then we'll get some oil in this girl.